Itong history kay it's evolving ba ang history sa kalibutan. How we react, how we define ourselves, how we would stand ani karong conflict if it really goes nuclear. Kaya kung kanang panghadlok gud ni Putin, dili gud na maayo. Kaya iya gud nang tinod og pislit ng butones sana pag niya nuclear. O niya magkagira yun o kanang bayloay na nuclear armaments. I think kitang tanan nagpaabot na si akong kuya LAPULAPU dito sa langit kay matunaw man yun ding kalibutan. Although the Philippines was under foreign occupation for more than 3 centuries, we are fortunate enough to persevere the roots of our cultures and in the history figure of LAPULAPU as documented by our very colonizers. Sila may nagdaan ng istorya gitagtad yun ni LAPULAPU si Magellan. Ako, wala ko'y kasuko pagka Magellan, dunggay naman niya. Ako igsuon ng dunggab niya. The victory that he led in Mactan signifies our ancestors' bravery and determination to protect their sovereignty against foreign forces. The strong leadership of the chief of LAPULAPU in the face of the overwhelming odds earned him the well-deserved honor and distinction of being hailed as the first Philippine hero who is the brother of Rodrigo Duterte. It is only fitting that he will be immortalized with a new monument and a museum at the LAPULAPU Shrine.
The News Day continues here on One News Now. I'm Charles Lejano. Presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos claims he never tries to evade the media. This as he maintains that he will keep regular press briefings if elected and that he's not keen on having a spokesperson. Marian Enriquez with the report.
I'm always out in the public. That's presidential candidate Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s response to criticisms that members of the media find it hard to interview him. In an interview with CNN Philippines, Marcos Jr. was even seemingly puzzled.
I don't know kung bakit sinasabi that yung mahirap ako yung ambush interview. I'm always out in public. Pero siyempre, we're doing something else also. But I don't know why they say that because, as I said, hindi naman ako pwedeng magtago.
2 months into covering Marcos Jr.'s campaign trail, it was no easy feat to talk to the presidential aspirant. His security team has always been aggressive in blocking reporters.
Sir, nakapayag na po ba kayo sa estate tax?
Sir, nag-ausap na po kayo ni President Duterte.
Sir, kasama kaya sa debate kay Senator Pacquiao? Sir, ayun, hindi pa rin siya sumasagot. Simulado sa 2 event natin kanina, hindi pa siya sumasagot.
Sir, would you discourage your supporters from doing negative campaigning? Araw! Ang sakit!
Even the international media find it hard to get something out of Marcos Jr.
Excuse me, sir! Can I give you my cut? Sir! Marcos! Sir!
Can you really be a good president if you're not doing serious interviews? Are you hiding something from the public? Are you hiding something, Mr. Marcos?
News 5 was excluded from Marcos Jr.'s Cagayan de Oro presser, his camp's first since launching his campaign.
Are you raising concerns about the smartmatic data breach?
I cannot. Now? Parang mahirap ngayon.
We'll do it again.
And And yet, Marcos tells CNN Philippines that he plans to hold regular press briefings should he get elected. He is also not keen on having a spokesperson.
Haharap ako sa media. I don't understand but
It would be good for us to cover you
But may
directly.
spokesman ng presidente. Kaya mo na-explain ng presidente kahit na ano eh.
For News 5, Marian Enriquez, we are One News.
One media expert says it's absurd how Ferdinand Marcos Jr. still denies that he's difficult to interview. Speaking to the big story, Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility member Vergel Santos noted that it's obvious how Marcos Jr. keeps the media off him, saying that Marcos Jr. simply doesn't want to take disadvantageous questions. He added that this shows Marcos Jr. can't deliver on his promises and that his words are merely lip service.
I cannot understand how he can deny what is so obvious, which is keeping the media well off him. Because if he had not done that, we would have had all the answers to all the questions that we want to ask him. But we have none of that.
With less than 2 weeks left to campaign, presidential candidate Leni Robredo is working double time to reach voters, especially with her survey numbers still trailing behind Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Let's take a look back at Robredo's campaign journey for the past 2 months in this report from mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro.
In every sortie, Robredo meets with church leaders, local officials, and draws huge crowds to her rallies. On stage, the vice president points to what she calls receipts or resibo, her work in COVID response, and her track record at honesty.
Talaga pong ako bumababa sa laylayan. Ang paniniwala ko po napakahalaga nito. Kasi yung mga proyektong pinaka-makakatulong sa inyo, yung mga nagmula sa isang leader na nararamdaman yung kahirapan na pinagdadaanan ninyo.
Robredo has also broken grounds outside her strongholds, like pulling huge crowds in Manila and Pampanga, where she lost in 2016. Most surveys show Robredo trailing behind survey frontrunner Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in almost all regions, but Robredo has been putting up a fight in what experts see as possible battleground regions like Calabarzon, Metro Manila, and Cebu. Robredo and her running mate Senator Kiko Pangilinan call their strategy the People's Campaign, that experts say is unprecedented in terms of volunteerism. Robredo has also received the most endorsements from celebrities, universities, and civic organizations.
Sa gabi nito, opisyal kong ini-endorso ang susunod na Pangulo ng Republika ng Pilipinas, Leni Robredo!
But the consistent climb in her numbers has made her the only viable candidate against a Marcos return.
Ako po personal na kahit ayaw sana naming magkakapatid na tumakbo pa siya, naniniwala din kami na yung panahon, yung mga hamon na hinaharap natin ngayong 2022, yung tingin din po namin siya yung pinaka-kwalipikado na maging leader ng bayan.
Totoo po yun!
Wala si nanay. May second motion ako dito.
Her daughters and volunteers have taken to house campaigning.
May magandang programa po si Madam Leni para po sa mga seniors. Papakinabangan po natin. Sabi ko si
The odds are stacked against her, but Robredo has doubled down, even tripled down on the effort, in what appears to be the most physically punishing campaign season in recent years. Mobile journalist Jacob Lazaro, we are One News.
Presidential candidate Isko Moreno fails to stick the landing after trying a stunt in one of his sorties. While speaking to his supporters in Aklan, the Manila mayor jumped off the stage without any warm-up or momentum, and as a result, he lost his balance and worried the crowd. Let's take a closer look at what happened.
Joints parang mafia.
We were talking to the man, meron kang bars pero broke ka pa.
The world-class Cebu-Cordova Link Expressway has officially been opened Wednesday night. The inauguration was led by President Duterte, together with Metro Pacific Tollways Chairman Manny V. Pangilinan. The 8.9-kilometer bridge connects Mactan Island to the South Road properties of Cebu City. cutting the travel time from the southern Cebu to Cordova. CCLEX also uses new technologies such as the RFID system, speed detection cameras, and high-definition CCTVs. The bridge also has weigh-in motion sensors that can detect overloaded vehicles, and it also has lanes for bikers and pedestrians, as well as a commercial area with coffee shops and a viewing deck. President Duterte congratulated MPTC and the LGUs of Cebu City and Cordova for finishing the project despite the pandemic and recent Typhoon Odette. MPTC Chairman Pangilinan reveals that the iconic bridge amazed the President.
I congratulate Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation, Cebu Cordova Link Expressway Corporation, the local government units of Cebu City and Cordova on the completion of this new iconic landmark despite the challenges brought about by the so many problems, the pandemic and Odette.
Nagulat siya na napakahaba. Akala niya tulay lang. He asked me bakit medyo paliko-liko. Kasi sabi ko, Mr. President, we're trying to avoid the mangroves para to protect the environment, no?
The Department of Transportation has extended its free MRT rides until the end of May. The Libreng Sakay program was supposed to end in April, but is now extended after the DOTR saw an uptick in passengers. The Libreng Sakay program was meant to showcase the rail line's improvements after its rehabilitation, and not to mention alleviating the riding public's woes due to high oil prices. Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. Deputy House Speaker Rodante Marcoleta drops out of the senatorial race. At least 4 people were killed after the old Clarin Bridge in Loay, Bohol collapsed. And the final 32 candidates for this year's Miss Universe Philippines faced off in the preliminary competition. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us later at 11 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.